Everyone loves potatoes, but did you know that there is a vegetable that is even easier to grow, tastes delicious and requires almost no care? It is Jerusalem artichoke, and as we will soon see, it is a star of the garden. Let me show you. Jerusalem artichoke is also called earth apple, citrus of the north, field pear, potato scent, bulba, earth gdula, świniak, Canadian truffle. Its name comes from the Indians, from the Topinambur tribe. It has been known in Poland since the 18th century. It was a staple food after the era of millet and before the appearance of the yellow potato. If you did not dig your Jerusalem artichoke harvest in the fall, do it as soon as possible in the spring. The beginning of March is the perfect time to do this. Dig them before they start sprouting again. This is also the perfect time to plant new Jerusalem artichoke. You can of course leave the autumn tubers from last season in the ground, and they will also grow and produce a harvest, but they will be small because there are too many of them and they are planted too densely. Just a few tubers are enough to get a very large harvest. And how much can you actually gain? After planting 14 tubers on a strip land of 15 centimeters and 3 meters, I got as much as 15 kilograms, that is 8 kilograms per square meter. Jerusalem artichokes rank high among the most fertile plants, and that in a very small space. Plus, you can plant them once and harvest them for the rest of your life. The more space you give them, the bigger the tubers will be. Here is my Jerusalem artichoke in bed. It doesn't look too good now, doesn't it? But believe me, there are countless treasures below, sown last year, and I've been saving them until this very moment to dig them up. There are many reasons to grow Jerusalem artichoke, and here is one of them. Jerusalem artichokes are one of the most prolific vegetables you can grow, and one of the easiest because, unlike, say, potatoes, the tubers can stay here all winter and they don't freeze. They can stay in the ground as long as you want, use them as needed, with no special storage required. Therein lies on the advantages of this hardy plant. Not only is it very hardy, it suffers from very few diseases, such as blight, has almost no pests, such as the Colorado potato beetle. Plant in the spring and watch it grow. It will grow really abundantly over the summer, and then it will die off, as the incredibly tempting tubers will just be there, ready for you whenever you want them. Now, if your ground is frozen solid over the winter, just dig them up early, and then you can always store them in boxes of damp sand or potting mix. It is no wonder it's often thought as the one crop of should grow in case of the apocalypse. Now you can see why. Jerusalem artichokes don't actually come from Jerusalem, and they have no relationship to globe artichokes, which are actually a type of thistle. This guy is actually more closely related to sunflowers, and when you consider its towering habit and cheerful yellow flowers, you can really see why, and that's probably where the alternate name sunflowers come from. These guys can grow really tall, around 10 feet or over 10 feet, and they flower profusely in late summer, in good soil and conditions, making them a truly decorative plant. The name Jerusalem artichoke is probably corrupting of the Indian word form sunflower gurisole, meaning to turn forward the sun, and part artichoke, probably because they taste incredibly similar to the common artichoke. These tubers have a really nutritious pulp and a slightly sweet, slightly nutty, fatty umami flavor. Why they aren't more popular, I don't know, but today we will change that. You are probably already thinking about planting one. Once you have established a bed of Jerusalem artichokes, you can keep growing them in the same plot of land year after year by simply transplanting some of the crop to retain them, and this is the way they behave, very much like perennial crop, growing year after year with minimal effort on your part. Jerusalem artichoke, which belongs to the Asteraceae family, is a perennial plant. Its tubers can be eaten raw or cooked, and are frost resistant, so they can remain in the ground all year round. Jerusalem artichoke, being a perennial plant, grows constantly in the same location and is a plant that has a high demand for nutrients. Therefore, after 4 years, it should be moved to a new location because over the time, tubers may no longer be as large as the plant itself will grow poorly. If we grow in containers, the soil should be well fertilized every year or replace it. A good pre-crop will be corn or any other vegetable. When growing Jerusalem artichoke, principles similar to potato cultivation should be applied. It is a large plant. It can reach 3 to 4 meters, so a lot of space should be allocated for its cultivation. This plant is voracious and expansive. You should be careful not to plant it close to other vegetables, because it will drown them out. A safe distance is about 50 centimeters. The above ground part may be bloom with yellow flowers, but it is not necessary. It also dies in the winter, but the tubers remain in the ground so that the plant can be reborn in the spring. This plant produces underground runners and their end-shot tubers. One plant can produce several dozen of them of different sizes. If the soil is fertile, properly fertilized, and moist, the plant grows very quickly, creating tubers 6 to 12 centimeters in size, with one plant capable of producing up to 50 tubers units. Jerusalem artichokes underground runners reach a length of about 1 meter. Once planted, it can recreate in the same place from each fragment of the runner or tuber for the next 20 years. Jerusalem artichoke can spread unnoticed through the garden through its underground runners, so it is important to choose the right place before planting limits its growth. This can be done by planting in a raised bed, which will limit the growth not only through the side walls but also underneath. It is worth placing, for example, agrotextile there, which allows water to pass through. If you grow them in full sun, you can expect even more tubers. I have noticed that once they get that tall, they fall over and interfere with the surrounding crops. For this reason, you might want to grow them in a separate bed, away from the other crops, or even in a large container, or anything that will keep them in check. Jerusalem artichoke actually grow really well even in poor soil, but if you can improve this, it will give them that extra boost to produce even more tubers. Now I will show you what I did. I will keep some of the tubers for replanting, and I decided to go with nice smooth tubers like this one with lots of buds to grow, and I'm going to space them about 18 inches apart in both directions. So for each tuber I will make a hole about 6 inches deep and just cover it. You can also control the plant if you plant it in a container, but it should be large enough to obtain the desired yield. To limit its growth, dig a plastic fence into the soil to a depth of at least 30 centimeters. We cultivate it in a sunny position, but it will also do well in a particle shade. To obtain flowering, it must be cultivated in a full sun. It produces small yellow flowers at the end of the summer, but if the summer is rainy and autumn comes quickly, it does not bloom at all. Before planting in heavier soils, the soil should be dug up to depth of 50 centimeters, while in lighter, sandy soils up to 25 centimeters. The tubers are planted in the ground in spring or autumn to depth of 10 to 15 centimeters, in spring to 10 centimeters, and deeper in the autumn to 15 centimeters, at intervals of 40 centimeters. In rows, the distance should be about 70 centimeters. This can be a planting of 3 to 4 pieces per square meter. The best tubers for planting will be those weighing 40 to 60 grams. They are planted in autumn or early spring. In subsequent years, new plants grow from the tuber preserved in the substrate. Jerusalem artichoke tubers can also be planted from October to December or from January to March. Autumn planting is more beneficial. It allows you to get up to 50 additional days and therefore obtain a larger harvest. Planted deeper, they will tolerate frost better, and the more space you give them, the larger they will be. For the winter, they can be covered with mulch, like straw, but it is not necessary. This is a protection against very hardy frost. The tubers can withstand temperatures down to -30 degrees of Celsius, while the above ground is at -5 degrees of Celsius. It requires fertile, airy, humus, slightly sandy soil, but it will also cope with poor soil. It produces lower yields in a very acidic and flawed soils. If the soil is heavy, it should be supplemented with compost. It is also worth adding manure, after which the plant will produce an abundant harvest. Best soil is from acidic to alkaline, pH 5 to 8. Does not like waterlogged soils and heavy clays. Before planting the tuber in autumn, organic fertilization is recommended. However, mineral fertilizers should be used depending on the type of soil. Usually, this is nitrogen 80 to 120 kg per hectare, phosphorus 60 to 80 kg per hectare, potassium 120 to 160 kg per hectare. Organic fertilization, like with liquid manure, is sufficient once on a month from April to August. Liquid manure made from nettle, elberry, biohumus, compost and granulated manure will be good. A large amount of a natural potassium has a beneficial effect, while excess nitrogen can cause poor yields. The plant will produce a lot of green mass and the tubers will be small. When cultivating in the field in spring, after the start of vegetation, the first dose of nitrogen is applied 40 to 60 kg per hectare in the form of ammonium nitrate, and when the plants reach 50 cm, the second dose of nitrogen can be applied, also 40 to 60 kg per hectare, in the form of urea. If we have manure, it is advisable to apply organic fertilization annually, manure at dose of 30 to 35 tons per hectare. Jerusalem artichoke has a very high water requirement. Due to its large size and juicy tubers, it absorbs a lot of it. If it does have not enough, the tubers will be poor. It should be watered frequently and regularly, but it cannot stand in water for a long time because the tubers will rot. On hot days, we will definitely notice that the soil around this plant dries out much faster than around other vegetables. If your soil is practically sandy, I will probably add a handful of garden compost to the bottom of the hole and maybe a sprinkle of something like chicken manure granules to help with growth. Mine is fertilized, so there is no need for that. Here you go. From now until the next winter, they will all grow back without much effort on my part. The leaves are actually frost resistant, but they will come in their own time, so the risk of being destroyed by cold weather is very small. They will start off a little shyly at first, but then they will grow at the speed I have never seen in any other crop. The fellow grows even faster than corn. Once the plants start to push forward the sky, you can apply a mulch of organic matter around the young shoots. Something like grass clippings work great. And if your soil is very well drained and gets quite dry, be sure to water them to encourage this rapid growth. I like to grow a living mulch of nasturtiums at the base of my Jerusalem artichoke. They have quite small roots, so they won't compete with the artichokes, and they add a really welcome touch of color, as well as producing beautiful peppery leaves and flowers. The plant will wilt if not watered enough, but will bounce back after watering. Some people recommended cutting the flowers for vases or greenery if the plant goes too big and gets in the way of the garden. However, I advise against this procedure because cutting the above ground green part causes the decrease in the yield of the Jerusalem artichoke tuber. Instead of focusing on the formation and development of the tuber, the plant will start to devote energy to the regrowth of the green mass that was cut. Because they grow so tall, they also make a fantastic temporary screen. And the flowers, like their close relative sunflower, at the end of the season, when the leaves start to fade, simply cut the stems back to the ground level, leaving a small stump so you know where the plants are, and then dig up the tubers when you needed them. In winter, the green part above the ground withers away, but tubers continue to develop. This can then be cut back to about 10 cm above the ground. They are best harvested from October to February when they are at their best. Harvesting them at any other time of the years is not advisable, as the tubers are not very tasty then. During the growing phase, the soil around the plant should be weeded and slightly disturbed. Once it is large, it will choke out the other plants. There are several varieties of Jerusalem artichoke. The skin of the tubers is thin and delicate. It comes in beige, yellow, red or pink. Inside, the bulbs are white or yellow. In Poland we can find two varieties of this species, Albik with white and longed bulbs, and the Rubik variety, characterized by pink skin and an irregular shape. White Albik is considered as a tastier option for consumption, while Rubik is considered as a forage variety, but not because of the taste, but because of the difficulty of peeling. Harvest usually takes place in autumn in October, before the soils freeze, or in spring in March. The longer they remain in the ground, the tastier they are. Dug out of the ground, they can be stored for 5 months. They should be placed in the damp sand and left in a cold room, otherwise they easily lose their juiciness, wither, dry out and mold. They can also be stored in a polyethylene foil at the temperature of 0 to 2 degrees Celsius with air humidity in the range of 85 to 95%. Be careful not to damage the delicate skin of the tuber. The plantation can yield about 10 to 55 tons per hectare. Due to the fact that they do not store well, it is best to leave them in the ground and dig them out as needed. The remains can be collected or left in the beds as a green manure for better yields. The spring harvest of Jerusalem artichoke should be done as early as possible. In growing Jerusalem artichoke for green mass, the above ground part can be moved in June, August and November, so we have a good harvest here. In subsequent years of cultivation, it is advisable to use rowing of plants, such as potatoes, in the field with a potato wedger or a weeder. This procedure not only eliminates weeds, but it is essential to limit excessive uncontrolled growth. Jerusalem artichoke as a perennial plant can regenerate from too small and hard-rested pieces. Without this procedure, the plantation can easily become too dense, which results in a reduced yield and the formation of enormous small tubers. This plant does not require much attention and is quite easy to grow. It is quite resistant to diseases and does not require spraying. In good conditions, it is not attacked by diseases at all. Among the diseases, the greatest losses on the plantation can be caused by Sclerobiana sclerotium, grey mold and sunflower rust. Can be caused by the fungus Tia Helianthus. The most dangerous disease for this plant is sclerotia rot, which is characterized by brown spots, a coating on leaves and lower parts of stems. Heavily infected plants wither and die. Symptoms of the diseases also appear on tubers, causing them to rot during the growing season and storage. Control of this disease involves planting healthy plants, removing diseased plants, and establishing crops in disease-free fields. Other diseases do not have a major impact on Jerusalem artichoke yields. Aphids and chrysophyllums sometimes appear as pests, but they also do not cause significant damage to the yield of this plant. It is also attacked by caterpillars of the cutworm and snails, but the most dangerous pests are voles, which can feed on Jerusalem artichoke tubers. Jerusalem artichoke can be prepared in similar way to potatoes, eaten raw, boiled, grilled, marinated, and used to make alcohol, coffee, porridge, flour, or fructose syrups. The above ground parts remaining after cultivation can be used as compost material or animal feed. As an energy plant, 3 kilograms of its dry Jerusalem artichoke stems and leaves is as much as 1 kilogram of coal. Their leaves and stems can also be used as mulch material. The ash obtained can be used as a fertilizer. The stems are also often used to make substrates for cultivation mushrooms, like bottom mushrooms. I think one of the reasons why artichokes are not as popular as they should be is because they have an unfortunate side effects of causing some people to get a little windy. This is because of the terry fiber found in the tuber called inulin. But while it may have this unfortunate side effect, it is actually very good for the old gut biome and can improve digestive health, so in short, it is very good for us. Harvesting the tubers after a few hard frosts can help to alleviate this unfortunate side effect. It is worth knowing that it is a medical plant, which have anti-inflammatory and cancer-preventing properties. It alleviates atherosclerosis and Alzheimer's disease, and also has a beneficial effect in the digestive system. It slows down the process of sugar absorption into the blood. Gastric acid found in the tuber has anti-inflammatory effects. According to experts, consuming 8 grams per day allows for the probiotic effect of the gut flora. It restores acid-base balance, strengthens the immune system, and it's gluten-free. Consuming them has a protective effect on the liver and the urinary system. Folk medicine uses Jerusalem artichoke in the treatment of circulatory system diseases and rheumatism. So this plant is coming back into favor because it will help us fight civilization diseases. I love them roasted, best in a campfire or added to soups for the beautiful rich depth of flavor they offer. My main goal in growing this vegetable is to harvest the tuber for drying, roasting and grinding as a grind coffee. They can also be eaten raw, grated or sliced into salad. But if you want to reduce the wind-inducing effects even further, try to fermenting the tuber. Simply mix the clean tuber with a little bit of chopped salad onion, a little garlic and ginger, and a little salt to make sort of a brine. Then add some water, which will naturally ferment. Now it will go into a room at a room temperature and in a dark to start fermenting. After 4 days, move it into a cool place to slow down the fermentation process. Jerusalem artichoke tubers have a sweet, slightly nutty taste, and thanks to the content of valuable nutrients. They help cleanse the body of toxins, promote the development of beneficial bacteria flora in the digestive system, and support the functioning of immune system. Containing a number of valuable nutrients such as minerals, mainly potassium, copper, magnesium, calcium, and iron, vitamins including C and B1, carbohydrates, primarily inulin, as well as starch and simple sugars, silicals and organic acids. The inulin contains in them hence maintain the correct level of sugars in the body, which is why its consumption is especially recommended for people suffering from diabetes.